My parents cut me out of their will because I had no family, so I exposed favoritism and financial abuse, cut them off, and let the golden child lose everything. I am a 35-year-old male who has been the family's backup plan while being treated like I barely matter. The breaking point was New Year's Eve. I cooked them dinner, opened my home, and right in the middle of it, they announced I am cut out of the will. Everything is going to my deadbeat brother, the same guy who has never contributed to a damn thing. Buckle up, because this is what years of that looks like when someone finally snaps. Let me start with who I am, which explains everything that came after. At 14, I was not playing video games after school. I was pushing a mower through neighborhood lawns for $15 a pop. By 16, I was stocking shelves at the local grocery store, learning every manager's name, and volunteering for the shifts nobody wanted. Senior year, while my classmates were planning parties, I was working 30-plus hours weekly at that same store while keeping a 3.8 and an 8 GPA, not because I was some exceptional kid, but because I had to. Community college was worse. Try working a full shift at AutoZone where you are covered in grease and dealing with guys who think you do not know a carburetor from a catalytic converter. Then switch shirts in your car to deliver pizzas until 2 a.m., then wake up for an 8 a.m. class. I did that 5 days a week for 2 years straight, existing on energy drinks in those 5 precious hours of sleep. My proudest moment then was finding that 98 F-150 with 180,000 miles on Craigslist. The owner wanted $2,300, but I talked him down to $2,000, exactly what I had saved in my lockbox. That truck taught me everything about engines, transmissions, and the value of preventive maintenance. I would spend Sundays underneath it, learning to replace brake pads and diagnose strange sounds. Meanwhile, my brother Alex, a 32-year-old male, was living in a whole different reality under the same roof. Everything was handed to him, and he never even had to ask. The thing that still bothers me to this day is that I needed braces badly. My canines were practically sideways. We just do not have $3,000 for cosmetic work right now, Mom explained. 2 years later, Alex got a full orthodontic workup, special ceramic brackets, the works. My Washington, D.C. trip with the debate team was too expensive. Alex's class trip to Italy and Greece the next year. They threw him a bon voyage party and gave him extra spending money. At 29, I finally got those braces myself. The orthodontist actually winced looking at my x-rays. This should have been addressed as a teenager, he said. The roots have fully set now, which means more force, more pain, and nearly twice as long. $5,800 in 26 months of metal-mouth adulthood later. I had the smile my parents could not afford when it mattered. We were not struggling financially. Dad owned a successful plumbing supply business that contractors across 3 counties relied on. Mom managed a dental practice where she got staff discounts. They had money for what they valued, and clearly that was not me. I still have a photo somewhere of me wearing Alex's old winter jacket, a North Face he had gotten bored with after 1 season. I'm clearly swimming in it, right? Nope, I am the older brother. It was too small, barely covering my wrists, impossible to zip closed. I shoved newspapers into the sleeves for 3 Minnesota winters, walking to work with my lips turning blue, while Alex got dropped off at school in Mom's heated SU-5. I put myself through community college, then state school for engineering. I would wake up at 5 a.m. for my construction job, work until 2 p.m., go to classes until 8 p.m., then study until midnight, repeat. My buddy Mike and I met on that construction site. We were both working our way through school, both first-generation college students. When things got rough, we would cover each other's shifts or spot each other for textbooks. Mike is the kind of friend who would give you his last $20 without hesitation. We once had to share a textbook for thermodynamics because neither of us could afford the $280 for a second copy. We would meet at the campus, library at midnight, often straight from our late shifts, and take turns photographing the homework problems with our flip phones. When I was 2 semesters from graduating, Dad needed bypass surgery. His insurance would not cover everything, so I dropped out to work full-time thinking I would go back. It never happened. Meanwhile, Alex got 4 years fully paid at a private university, which he stretched into 6 before dropping out anyway. His reason? The professors did not understand my vision. Classic Alex. The meeting with my academic advisor when I withdrew is burned into my memory. He looked at my transcript, a 3.86 GPA, only 2 semesters and 1 internship left, and just shook his head. "You are one of our top students," he said. "Are you sure there is no other way?" There was not. Dad's surgery was scheduled for the following week, and they needed $18,000 that insurance would not cover. I cleared out my savings account, cashed in the bonds my grandfather had left me, and handed over every penny I had. Dad never even said thank you. Mom just said, "That is what family does." The same week I dropped out, I adopted my dog, Max, from the shelter, a scruffy mutt they were going to put down. Best decision I ever made. That dog kept me sane through some seriously dark times when I was working 70+ hours a week just to keep afloat. Started as a basic H5C installer, making $13 an hour, sleeping on Mike's couch for 3 months when I could not make rent. Took every certification I could, worked holidays, weekends, overnight emergency calls in Minnesota winters when it is 30 degrees Fahrenheit outside and someone's furnace dies at 2 a.m. Within 4 years, I was making decent money as a commercial system specialist. Those first years in H5C were brutal. My hands were constantly cut and calloused from crawling through ductwork and handling sheet metal. We would be in attics in August when it is 140 degrees up there, sweating through our clothes in 15 minutes, or in crawl spaces in January with frozen pipes and mice running over our boots. I would come home so exhausted I would fall asleep with my work boots still on, then wake up at 5 a.m. to do it all again. But I learned every system inside and out: Lennox, Carrier, Train, and Goodman. I could diagnose most issues just by listening to a unit run for 30 seconds. Meanwhile, after college, Alex bounced between jobs, bartending, selling cars, a stint in real estate that ended when he could not be bothered to show up for client meetings. Each failure was met with he is finding himself or his boss was intimidated by his potential. Alex's real estate career was peak Alex. Dad bankrolled everything: licensing course, GQ-worthy headshot, and 6 months of marketing expenses. Meanwhile, Alex rolled into the office around noon most days, rearranged his desk trinkets, and lectured everyone about his strategic vision. The final straw was that he skipped showing a property to first-time buyers who had driven 3 hours with their kids because he was getting a massage. He did not call, he did not text, just ghosted them. His broker fired him the next day. That is when the real financial drain began. Every emergency landed on my shoulders. $12,000 for Dad's heart procedure, $4,800 for Mom's dental work, $6,700 to fix their leaking roof. Alex's disasters cost me thousands more: $3,500 for legal fees after a texting while driving accident, and $7,500 toward his failed restaurant scheme. And so it went on and on. Alex's restaurant venture was the pinnacle of stupidity. He and his college buddy decided to open an experimental cuisine spot featuring absurdities like sushi pizza and nacho ice cream. Their entire business plan: Instagram influencers will make us famous. My parents fronted $30,000 for the lease and renovations, which Alex burned through in weeks, $8,000 on a neon fusion confusion sign, and $12,000 on non-restaurant grade imported furniture. They never served a single customer. The health inspector shut them down pre-opening for missing basic ventilation and grease traps. The landlord kept their deposit for damages, and naturally, I ended up covering part of the loss. 3 years in, I finally saved enough for a down payment on a modest $110,000 condo near the community college, a genuine steal. I was pre-approved, had 12% saved, inspection scheduled. When I shared this at Sunday dinner, Dad put down his fork and looked at me like I had suggested joining a cult. "People like you rent," he said flatly. "Home ownership is for families." 2 weeks later, my down payment vanished to cover Dad's emergency gallbladder surgery. The next month, they loaned Alex $30,000 for that restaurant. It failed within 1 year. The loan was forgotten. There is a decade of this crap. I am living in a small apartment in Minneapolis that I can barely afford because everything extra went to them. Got student loans from the degree I never finished and have never been able to get ahead. My apartment is nothing special. 650 square feet in a building that was probably nice in the 1970s. The water pressure sucks. The neighbors argue at 2 a.m. every weekend, and the parking situation is a nightmare, but it is all I could afford after sending half my paychecks to my parents for years. Fast forward to New Year's Eve last month, I decided to host a small dinner at my place. I spent half my last paycheck on steaks and snacks because I rarely get to host anything. I invited my buddy Mike from work and his wife Tara, my girlfriend Jess, my old college roommate Derek, and unfortunately my parents and golden boy Alex with his wife Vanessa. Dad complained about the parking situation the moment they arrived. Mom made that face she always makes when she enters my apartment, like she is walking into a truck stop bathroom. Alex showed up 30 minutes late, did not bring anything. and immediately asked what else I had because he does not drink that cheap stuff. We were squeezed around my table eating steaks I could not afford. When Dad tapped his glass and stood up, he said, "Since it is New Year's and we are all together, your mother and I want to share our estate planning update. Since you do not have a family of your own, Dan, we have decided everything is going to your brother and his kids, the house, the savings, everything. Family legacy and all that." The room went silent. Mike nearly choked on his drink. Jess froze beside me. Alex just smirked while Vanessa suddenly became fascinated with her napkin. I was not shocked by their favoritism. That was my entire life story. I was stunned by the casual cruelty of announcing it during the New Year's dinner I was hosting in my home after eating my food. I set down my fork and looked directly at my father. "That is interesting because I have been getting a lot of calls about that reverse mortgage you begged me to co-sign." His smug expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" Mom asked, voice sharp. "The bank called yesterday because you are 3 months behind on payments on the loan I co-signed on the house. You are so excited to leave to Alex." Dad's face reddened. "That is private family business. So is your will," I replied. "But you seemed fine discussing that in front of everyone. And while we are announcing things, should we talk about the $42,000 I have loaned you both over the last 5 years that you have never paid back, or the $16,500 I gave Alex directly when he could not make rent for 6 straight months because he kept quitting jobs that were beneath him?" "We are your parents," Mom hissed. "That is what family does." "Apparently, not all family," I said, gesturing to Alex, who was suddenly very interested in his phone. "Some family just takes." Mike, who had witnessed their treatment of me for years, spoke up. "Mrs. Kellerman, with all due respect, that is a really crappy thing to announce at a New Year's dinner. Stay out of this." Dad snapped. Jess, meeting my parents for the first time, added coldly, "Then maybe you should have discussed it in private." I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out of my own apartment, leaving them all sitting there with their mouths open. I drove around for an hour in my old F-150, Max riding shotgun like he always does when I need to clear my head. I ended up parked at the 24-hour Walmart, just sitting there wondering how I had been such a doormat for so long. Max has this way of putting his paw on my arm when I am upset, like he is saying, "Hey man, I got you." We sat in the Walmart parking lot with the heater running just enough to keep us from freezing, watching people rush in for last-minute New Year's supplies. Everyone was getting ready to celebrate while my life was imploding. Max kept his paw on my arm the whole time. When I finally returned, everyone was gone except Jess. She had cleaned up and was sitting on the couch, waiting for me, petting Max, who had immediately curled up next to her. That is one of the reasons I fell for her. My dog loved her from day one. "Your mom tried to take the leftover steaks home," she said. I told her they were staying here. Jess grew up in a trailer park in rural Wisconsin, put herself through school to become a librarian. She gets it. The struggle, the hustle, the pride in building something from nothing. On our 3rd date, she cooked me dinner in her tiny studio apartment and apologized for not taking me somewhere nicer. I almost proposed on the spot. Finding someone who appreciated the value of things was like finding water in a desert. I met Jess when the library's AC died during a July heat wave. The building hit 85 degrees Fahrenheit while I was there fixing a failed compressor and electrical issues. For 3 straight days, I pulled 12-hour shifts to get it working. She brought me ice water every hour. On day 3, she handed me her number on a library card with, "I do not usually check out guys working at the library, but I will make an exception." Her awkward delivery was somehow perfect. We matched. 2 weeks of silence followed. No calls, no texts from my family. I ignored Mom's call 3 days later and Dad's text about discussing things like adults. What he actually meant was discussing how I could keep giving them money while they gave me nothing. Dad's text actually said, "We need to clear the air about your inappropriate behavior at dinner. Your mother is very upset. Call us when you are ready to act like an adult." Translation, we need you to apologize for embarrassing us in front of your friends and then get back to funding our lifestyle. Not happening. At work, Mike noticed the change in me. "Dude, you look different," he said as we finished installing a new system at a restaurant. Mike has been there through everything. When I could not make rent during that first year as an H5C apprentice, it was his couch I crashed on. When I wanted to upgrade the engine in my truck, we spent 3 weekends in his garage, covered in grease, getting it done. The guy is more family to me than my actual family. We were installing a new rooftop unit at this upscale restaurant. It was January in Minnesota, which meant working in 10 degrees Fahrenheit weather on an icy roof with the wind cutting through our coveralls. Most guys would be complaining, but Mike and I had a system. He would handle the connections, while I managed the crane. Then we would switch, so nobody got too cold in one spot. Efficient. No whining, just getting it done. He was right about the change. For the first time in years, I was not constantly anxious about my phone ringing with another family emergency. I checked my bank statements and added it up. I'd given them $13,400 last year alone. That is a decent used car or a nice vacation I'd never had. The numbers were actually worse than I initially calculated. I went through my online banking history, credit card statements, and even dug up the checkbook registers I had kept. Yes, I still use paper registers. Old habits die hard. $4,800 for mom's dental implants, $2,200 for their property tax shortfall, $1,800 for Alex's car insurance after his third fender bender, $950 for the plumber when their water heater flooded the basement. The list went on and on. Each time it was an emergency that they would pay back when things stabilized. Things never stabilized. 18 days after New Year's, Derek called with news. I ran into your brother at that sports bar by your old place last night. He was complaining to anyone who would listen about how you are screwing over your parents. But get this. He let slip that they refinanced the house 3 times, not just for the reverse mortgage. They used the money to buy that boat they keep at the lake, pay for his wedding at that golf resort, and invest in his friend's sports memorabilia business that went belly up. That was money they had sworn they needed for medical bills and home repairs. Money I had helped them make payments on for years, thinking I was keeping them afloat through a health crisis. The boat turned out to be a 26-foot bayliner with twin engines docked at a premium Lake Minnetonka slip, a $42,000 steal funded by their third refinance. While they could not help with my $4,800 student loan during my post-layoff unemployment, they somehow found $35,000 for Alex's golf club wedding that same year. And that sports memorabilia investment, just Alex's college roommate buying random signed jerseys and baseball cards before disappearing with most of the cash. The worthless leftovers sat moldering in my parents' garage. The next day, I consulted with a lawyer, a guy whose commercial building I had fixed the H5C system in during a July heat wave. He remembered me and offered to help pro bono when I explained what was happening. He confirmed I could not easily remove myself as CO signer on the reverse mortgage without screwing myself over even worse, but helped me develop a plan. The lawyer, Kevin, ran a small practice specializing in real estate and contract law. When I fixed his building's AC during that 102 degrees Fahrenheit heat wave, I had found a way to reroute the system to keep his server room cool. The judge threw out their case in under 10 minutes. Their lawyer, a different one from the email guy, quit when my parents could not pay his $5,000 retainer after the initial hearing. They represented themselves at the final proceeding, which went about as well as you would expect. I cut all contact. The only person who still had any connection to that side of the family was my cousin Ryan. He had seen how they treated me growing up and occasionally texted me updates. Not because I asked, but because he thought I should know. They are living in that crappy apartment complex by the interstate, he told me one day. Your dad keeps telling everyone you will come to your senses any day now. Ryan and I were not close growing up, but he had witnessed enough family gatherings to see the pattern. He was the only one who ever said anything about it. At my high school graduation, when my parents gave me a $50 gift card, while Alex, who was still in 9th grade, got a new laptop for high school, Ryan was the one who pulled me aside and said, "That is messed up, man." We kept in loose contact ever since, mostly through social media, until all this went down. Meanwhile, my life took off like a rocket. Without 3 extra adults draining my bank account, I started saving serious money. Finished my engineering degree in 14 months with a 3.95 GPA. I got hired by a commercial H5C design firm making twice what I was before. Going back to school at 35 was not easy. I was easily 15 years older than most students in my classes. The first day, some kid asked if I was the professor, but I had something they did not. 2 decades of hands-on experience with the systems we were studying theoretically. What they learned from textbooks I had fixed with my own hands in 110 degrees attics and freezing basements. Professors started using me as a resource, asking me to explain real-world applications. My final project, a retrofitting system for improving energy efficiency in older commercial buildings, won the department's Innovation Award and led directly to my new job. The side business with Mike exploded. We incorporated, hired 2 guys, and now have contracts with 3 property management companies. Last quarter, my share of the profits was more than I used to make in 1 year. Mike handles the business side while I oversee the technical work and training. We started with residential, smart home installations, but quickly expanded into commercial IoT systems, connecting entire office buildings to centralized monitoring and maintenance protocols. Our big breakthrough came when we landed a contract with Ridgemont Properties, which manages 22 commercial buildings in the metro area. They wanted to reduce their energy costs by 15% and modernize their entire portfolio. That one contract doubled our business overnight. 6 months after cutting off my parents, I put a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom house with a big garage in a quiet neighborhood. I never thought I would own anything like this. Nothing fancy about my house, just a well-maintained 1970s split level with 1,800 square feet on a quarter acre. It still had the 1990s-era cabinets, laminate counters, and beige carpet upstairs. But it had solid bones, a good roof, and what mattered most, a 2-car garage big enough for a proper workshop. The fenced backyard featured a massive maple tree for summer shade. Max claimed it immediately, marking every corner like he was planting flags on the moon. I upgraded from the 2012 F-150 to a 2018 that does not have a single mechanical issue. I still do most of the maintenance myself, but now it is because I enjoy it, not because I cannot afford a mechanic. The new truck was not even on my radar until my transmission guy called about a trade-in that had just come in. A 2018 F-150 10th T with a towing package and only 42,000 miles, dark blue with gray interior and immaculately maintained. The guy had kept a maintenance log in the glove box with every oil change, tire rotation, and inspection documented. I paid cash $27,800 and drove it home that day. Jess moved in right away. We turned the spare bedroom into a library for all her books. I built the shelves myself. She still works at the library, but got promoted to head of programming for the youth department. She is amazing with those kids. Her promotion came 3 months after we moved in. The previous youth programming director retired, and the library board unanimously selected Jess to take over. She created this popular weekly STEM program for middle school girls that had tripled attendance figures and attracted grant funding from local tech companies. Now she manages all the children's and teen activities, from story time for toddlers to coding workshops for high schoolers. Her salary jumped by $12,000, which she immediately split between retirement savings and a fund for house renovations. Last spring I took her camping at that same lake, but this time I had a ring in my pocket. Simple thing, nothing flashy, but good quality. She said yes before I even finished asking. We are getting married next summer. Small ceremony, just friends. We are putting the wedding money toward renovating the kitchen instead. I proposed at sunset on the shore of Lake Minnetonka, not at one of the crowded public beaches, but a small access point I knew about from working on houses in the area. I had a small fire going, camp chairs set up, and Max wearing a ridiculous bow tie collar I bought for the occasion. I had planned this whole speech, but when the moment came, I just held out the ring and got about 3 words in before she tackled me with a hug and said, "Yes, the wedding plans reflect who we are." Practical, no nonsense, focused on the long game ceremony at a state park with about 40 guests, followed by a barbecue reception. Meanwhile, we are putting $30,000 into a kitchen renovation that will add actual value to our lives every day for years to come. New cabinets, quartz countertops, upgraded appliances, and proper ventilation. Obviously, it is my profession after all. Then just when I thought I was done with the family drama, Ryan called about 8 months after the foreclosure with some interesting news. Dude, Alex's wife caught him screwing his CrossFit instructor in their minivan in the gym parking lot. She kicked him out, filed for divorce, and is going for full custody. The instructor was apparently a 23-year-old fitness influencer who had been giving Alex private sessions for months. Vanessa suspected something when their credit card statements showed payments for personal training 5 times a week, but she caught them in the act. It turns out they were not even trying to hide it. Alex's Subaru was parked right in the front row of the gym parking lot with condensation on all the windows despite it being 78 degrees Fahrenheit outside. The divorce was brutal. Vanessa's dad is a partner at a big law firm, and he made sure she got everything: the house, the cars, full custody of their kids, massive child support that Alex cannot afford. From what Ryan told me, Alex tried to claim he had no income to avoid paying, but her lawyer found his crypto accounts and day trading records. The judge was not impressed. Alex had been bragging to everyone about his investment portfolio. and how he was building generational wealth through strategic crypto positions. In reality, he had blown about $40,000 on meme coins and NFTs of cartoon monkeys, most of which were now worthless. He had also been day trading on margin, which the divorce discovery process revealed in excruciating detail. With nowhere to go, Alex moved in with my parents in their one-bedroom apartment. According to Ryan, it lasted exactly 3 weeks before Alex bailed. Last Ryan heard, he was couch surfing with some buddies while being $92,000 in debt. My parents' situation got worse. Dad had another heart problem, but could not afford the treatment he needed. Mom lost her dental office job when they downsized. The apartment they ended up in was essentially a studio in a converted motel from the 1960s. They were living on Dad's Social Security and whatever Mom could make, doing part-time bookkeeping for cash under the table. The medical bills kept piling up because Dad refused to adjust his lifestyle after his heart issues. He still ate red meat every day. He still refused to walk anywhere if he could drive. He still thought vegetables were rabbit food. Ryan texted me, "They keep asking if I have heard from you. I just say no and change the subject." Ryan mentioned that at the last family gathering, my parents spent the entire time telling a revisionist history of our relationship. In their version, they had sacrificed everything to put me through school, had loaned me thousands for my business that I never repaid, and I had abandoned them in their time of need out of selfishness. The family members who had witnessed their favoritism over the years just exchanged glances but did not contradict them. No point arguing with people so committed to their own alternate reality. I did not think about them much until last month. I was in the garage changing the oil in my truck while watching a football game when Jess came out looking confused. "Your parents are in the driveway," she said. I walked out to find them standing next to a rusted-out Corolla I did not recognize. Dad looked 20 years older. Mom had lost weight, her clothes hanging off her frame. "How did you find this address?" I asked, not inviting them in. "We saw your company website," Mom said quietly. "What do you want?" Dad tried to stand up straight, summoning some dignity, "Son. We have hit a rough patch. The landlord is selling our building. We need a place to stay for a while until we get back on our feet." "Where is Alex?" I asked. Mom looked away. "We have not heard from him in months. Funny how that works out." "Please," Dad said, his voice cracking. "We have nowhere else to go." I looked at them. These people who had used me for decades and discarded me the moment I stopped being useful. That is what happens when you back the wrong horse. Were your parents? No, you are strangers who happen to share my DNA. You made your choice a long time ago. "So, you are just going to leave us homeless?" Dad asked, anger replacing the pleading. "I am not leaving you anything. You did this to yourselves. You chose Alex. You can find him and ask him for help." They stood there for 1 minute, maybe waiting for me to change my mind. I did not. Finally, they got back in their car and drove away. Jess came out and put her arm around me. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said, and I meant it. "Let us finish watching the game." There was a moment, a flicker of that old programming telling me I should help them. Then I remembered the spreadsheet. One Direction, $648, and 20 years of choosing Alex over me, and any hesitation I might have felt evaporated.